Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So we've been doing a few Thrinchies. We did 56, we've done 57 and 58 and 59 and 60. I just love them. They're all in my little Thrinchie book. So if we do the next ones, which are 61 and 62, and I'm coming to the end of my book, as you can see. I'll probably put one on the front cover as well. So we're on number 61 and 62 next. So I thought we'd create a couple of nice simple Thrinchies. And I'm going to, let's grab our Thrinchies and a piece of copier paper. So we'll grab a piece of copier paper. Now, it's the last day of free UK shipping if you're watching YouTube, and that's Tracy Free Ship, all in capitals, TRACY, free ship. You can see on my previous videos, I've written that down for you. So that's until 11:30 tonight. So let's add the black. Or shall I do it afterwards? Because I'm going to blend colour. Let's do it afterwards. Shall I like how I change my mind? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Blueprint Sketch. I've actually got this colour in stock. So I'm going to take my blending brushes and let's apply plenty of ink to that blending brush. Now, so that I don't put my paw prints on there and just leave any marks, I'm just going to grab a piece of kitchen towel just so that I can blend and not leave my fingerprints, because I want that nice, deep, rich blue. And I just want it all to have that lovely, deep, rich blue on there. So let's just apply the colour, adding layers of that colour. And I'm going to turn that round so that the whole of the Thrinchie is covered with that rich dark blue ink. So it doesn't go like an ombre. I'm literally applying the ink so that it's dark all over, rather than going dark to light. I actually want that rich dark pigment. Let's pick up the rich dark pigment. You've also still got some ink on your non-stick craft sheet, so you can continue to pick that up and apply that to your Thrinchie. So that's perfect. So we've got one. Let's take the second one. And again, still plenty of ink on that non-stick craft sheet that you continue to drag into your card. So you can continue to pick that ink up and drag that into your card. Again, you can have a spare Thrinchie to mop up this blue ink should you wish, because then you can create another background, or you can create a background on one of your 4 by 6 inch pieces as well, because then you've got another lovely rich dark background. So if you want to mop that up, you can. I'm not going to mop that up on this occasion. I'm just going to concentrate on the Thrinchies. So I can continue just to pick that up. Let's turn that round. So you can continue to pick the blue up if you wish. Then you've got lovely dark rich colour on there. As I was saying, you can mop that up if you wish. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to clean my mess up. Let's move that out of the way. But there's quite a bit of colour there that you could add to another piece of card. I'm now going to take my copier paper and we'll draw our Posca pen outline on there. Again, I'm going to use a little bit of that dry kitchen roll just to hold on to that. So I'm just, actually it's okay. So I'm going to then go round all sides. It's up to you whether you do it first or second, or you do it the night before, because then they are dry. Because I'm doing this in real time, I don't want to add the Posca pen and then blend the Distress Oxide, because I'll smudge the Posca pen. So that's why I'm doing it afterwards. Lovely, that's one. I do love how that faux black matte really does bring it to life. It really brings that to life. Draws the eye into our focal image as well. That's it. There we go. So let's just put that black Posca pen out of the way. So these are going to be nice, simple Thrinchies. And what I'm going to do then, let's move this out of the way. Let's do one at a time. So we'll move one Thrinchie out of the way, just because then we've got one at a time. I'm then going to take the Jar of Wishes stamp set, and I'm going to use these florals here. I've got my acetate in a right mess there. Let's grab, there we go. So on this one, I'm going to use that smaller little floral. So let's use that small floral. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white paint. Hopefully your paint isn't as thick as mine, because mine's terrible. And I'm going to braid that out so that it's a bit like an ink pad. And I'm going to dab my, what's this called, stamp into there. And then I'm just going to add the stamping onto my background. Okay, can you see I've got a very faint print? That's all I need. Again, I've got that on there because I'm going to paint in with a little bit more depth anyway. Let's have that one that way. Let me show you what we've actually got. Let me pick this up. Can you see? We've got the paint on there. It doesn't matter that it's gone on the black. I can go over that again. So I would like another one. So let's put that there. There we go. So you can, oh, I'll just put that straight into the paint because I'm good. So I've just braided the paint out, and I've then got that sort of like a stamp pad. But remember to clean that little stamp. And then I'm going to take a little paintbrush. Did I leave the one out I was using? Let's move that out of the way. So I'm going to use my round brush number 1. Let's just add a little bit of water to that and see if we can pick some of this paint up. And then I don't want too much moisture, so you've got your kitchen towel, and if you've got a little bit too much moisture, you can take that out. So then I'm going to come in and just paint in the floral a little bit more. But I have the shape of the floral on there, so that works quite nicely. So pick up that pigment and just paint in your floral. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just follow your impression that you've made by stamping the floral on there. And if your paint's a little bit thick like mine, just add a touch of water just to help that along. So just picking up a little bit of that white paint. There we go. You can add a little bit more water if you wish, just so that you can pick this up. Just to make it a little bit easier. So let's paint that in. So you're just painting your floral back in again. Just so that it's got a little bit more of that paint on there. It'll have that texture on there, which is just wonderful. So you're just painting that in. There we go. So I've just painted that floral in. And if you want, you can go over and add another layer of that paint should you wish. So if you want to come in and add another layer, can you see how it layers on top so that you've got a little bit more depth just on there. So as always, you know me, you know it's sort of, I always talk about adding those layers. There we go. And you can then lean on your, like me, you can lean on your kitchen towel that you've just wiped everything on. So let's move that out of the way. And then we'll just clean this up. Yes, we've got the other Thrinchie to do, but I don't want to work in a pile of mess that's already dried. So let's just use a bit of water just to clean up that dry paint. There we go. You can then just give that a little bit of a dry with your heat tool. So just give that a little bit of a dry. And you can see we've now got the images on there that we want, and I think that's dry, isn't it? You can come in and you can add a little bit of your Prismacolor pencil, just so that you've got the stems. Just make sure you've got the stems in there. Again, it's up to you if you just add another layer of white, of that white paint. We're not leaving it like that anyway. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take, where are you? Stencils. I'm going to take the distressed background stencil. So let's take that distressed background stencil, move it out of the way at the moment. Let's grab another piece of kitchen towel because I want to spray some water. And if you don't want to spray that water everywhere, let's just spritz that stencil with some water. And then what I'm going to do is just go around the edges just to pick up that moisture, just around the edge. But this is why kitchen towel is my best friend, because if you don't want to get in a mess, that solves that for you. So I've now got some water onto my stencil, just so that you can see. And then I'm just going to layer part of that stencil. Let's have that just there. Okay, so I've got water on there. So I just need that to have a little bit of time just to react. So the kitchen towel, the only thing that does is it picks up some of the moisture that moves near the outside of the stencil. So you can see I've picked up some of that ink, and you need to just give that a little bit of time to react. And the only area you want to react is where you've added the moisture on that stencil. So let's just press that down. Can you see how much of that moisture that you pick up from your kitchen towel? And this is why it's your best friend, because it just picks up that extra moisture. But don't be in a rush to lift it up. Just give that a little bit of time, because you want that lovely oxide to react to that moisture that you've added to the stencil. So let's just lift that up and see if we've got some reaction. Yes, we have got some reaction there. There we go. There we go. So you can see that I've got the reaction that I want, and I've still got the white florals. So I'm going to spritz again. Again, I'm just going to wipe some of this moisture off, just so that I haven't got the whole stencil covered in moisture. Let's just pick that up, because you end up with it everywhere. And then we'll add some of those on this side. So I'm just giving that, again, it's just having a little bit of patience. Just to give that time to react. You need it to sit on there so that it reacts. If you lift it up too soon, then it's not doing the job, is it? There we go. So now let me just dab these. So you can see I have the design just on there, and then you can see the ink on here, and I'm going to add another little diamond. So you can see now I'm just pinpointing certain areas of that stencil, because then if you want to just add a little bit, you can lift that up and you can just add one of the diamonds. So just giving that some time, just so that that reacts. There we go. Now, let's just dab that moisture. Can you see? Now on this one, I did want this square as part of the design, just so you can see it. On the other one, we'll do it slightly different. Okay. So we're going to leave that so that it continues to react. So let's take the ink off this because we don't want to put the ink back on the stencil. And then we'll take the next Thrinchie. And this time, from TE26, we'll use the other floral, which is this one. It's got a slight curvature to it. So let's move this all out of the way. Let's bring in that paint again. Then we can just close that up. And then I'm going to brayer that out so it's like an ink pad. And then I'm going to press my stamp on there, and then we can add this to our project. There we go. So I've got a faint outline. So let's have you there. So I've just got a faint outline of the floral. Don't leave it on too long because you don't want it to tear your paper. Let's have that there. And when you actually do this, you'll see that you leave a little bit of blue on here because you're lifting that ink. Right, so let's clean our stamp. Your stamp is the most important thing. You need to give that a clean. Not because of anything other than the paint, because you don't want to leave that paint layer on there. So we can take that off. Add that back to there. And we'll just give that acrylic block a little bit of a wipe because we did add, not we, me, I did add some paint on that. And I've got this paint on here like we did before. I can add a little bit of water to it, particularly because my paint is super thick. And then I can come in and just paint in my floral, just so that it's got a thicker layer of paint. You can see how thick my paint is. Okay. But just remember, don't leave that, as you're pressing your paint onto your Distress Oxide, don't leave that on there too long because you'll just tear your card and you really don't want to do that. So you're now picking up, let's have a little bit more water. And the only reason for the water is not really to dilute the paint, it's because mine is so thick. So just so I can spread the paint, because it is so thick, I'm just adding a little bit of moisture. Obviously you have to be aware that that has an effect on the opacity and how opaque it is. In other words, you know, it's solid, you can't see through it. If you dilute it, obviously you dilute that. There we go. So just so you can see, let's give that a dry. Now I like that quite a lot, so I am going to add another layer of paint, but I want neat, thick paint, so I'm going to bring out some more paint afterwards for both of them. I'm just cleaning this up because it's completely dry, because I've braided that out, obviously. So have we dried that? Let's just clean that. There we go. So let's make sure you're dry. I can still see a little bit of wet there, so just give that a dry. Okay, and on this one, let's move these all out of the way. I'm going to take this stencil, and we'll have moisture everywhere. Let's just clean that up because we end up with it everywhere. And then on this one, I'm going to just place the stencil directly over the top. Just let that do its thing. And we'll press that down just so that it absorbs some of that moisture and we don't get too much of a bleed, so that we get something that looks like that stencil. We don't want too much of a bleed. And we're just going to give that a few moments. Now, if you don't dry this, like with this one, I haven't dried it, it continues to react. And now you've got those definite sort of distressed diamond shapes on there. And you can see how long I'm giving this just to sit on there, just so it reacts and it's given time, so the moisture reacts with our distress oxide background. And that's how I wanted a rich, lovely backdrop. There we go. So if we lift this up, we've now got, you can see it's picked all that ink up. Now if I leave that just to do its thing, can you see where this moisture is here? I'm going to leave that so that it can continue reacting. So I'm just going to leave that on one side. And then we're going to bring this one in. And what I'm going to do is just take a little bit more paint, because I just love the white against the blue. So I'm going to take a little tiny bit of water and just pick up my paint. Just bring in my kitchen towel just so it isn't sopping wet, and then I'm just going to add another layer of that white paint. Just so we've got that thick white paint on there. Let's come down and add now. You wouldn't think that the florals were added first, would you? Looks like they were added last. So let's bring in this one. Can you see that's still reacting? So I'm going to bring in another layer of this white. can see there's still moisture on this one. Let's just clean up. That's because it's at the back of the card. So just add that white. Look how thick my paint is. I don't like it this thick, to be honest. There we go. And we'll just bring in the stems again. There we go. And I'm still leaving that just to continue to react. So again, I've not dried that at the moment, and I didn't blot any of the moisture. I just left it to continue reacting. So just cleaning that brush a little bit. So this is what you've got at the moment, your two little Thrinchies. So that's what you've got at the moment. And then what I'm going to see is if any text will react with this. So let's place that stencil back. So I've got one less thing on my desk. And then I'm going to take, let's just move this out the way. I'm going to grab the magnolia stamp. So I'll take that magnolia stamp, and I'm going to take the text. Let's move them out the way. That way. And I'm just going to spritz that stamp with water. Which just mop up any of that moisture on the back of the stamp, just so that I can actually pick that up. And then what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of that stamp on the background with the moisture. So I'm just using water. I'm just using a bit of water just to add text. So I'm going to clean that then, because it will have picked up some of that blue ink. Let's put this on here and then we won't get the moisture. And make sure I've not got too much. And then I'm going to add stamping on here. Can you see I'm just curling that a little bit, just so it's a little bit more random. I'm just adding a few little bits of text just with the moisture. So let's just dab. So it sort of gives me some markings on there of the text as well, just creating our little background. Can you see? It just reacts and gives some detail to our background. So let's now lift this text up again. Let's give that a dry, and now we'll add some tone on tone. So we're going to take some Twilight, just because we want it a little bit darker. So let's take some Twilight ink up this stamp, and then we'll add a little bit of the Twilight ink and it's not black, but it's a very dark blue. So I'm going to take the Twilight again, ink that up, and let's add some more of our stamping. Now I'm stamping onto an oxide base, so we do have to remember that we do have to dry that. And we've added lots of moisture to this anyway, so it's a good idea just to give those a little bit of a dry. One, because we want the paint dry. So make sure your paint is dry. Let's turn that Thrinchie over. So it makes sure that your paint is dry, but also that ink is dry. So you can see our... Now if you want to leave those perfectly white, that is entirely up to you. So what I'm going to do is grab, hopefully, indigo or something like that. Yeah, and maybe that one. So what I'm going to do then is I've got my Prismacolor pencils. I've got Indigo Blue 901 and Denim Blue 1101. Now let's do these big ones first so you can just see what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the bottom, but I'm leaving a little bit of white at the base, so that white edge. So I'm leaving a little bit of the white edge. So let's just leaving a little bit of that white edge, just so that it pops a little bit more. Again, a little bit on the stem, but leaving a little bit of a border. I'm then going to come to the Denim Blue. Just come in with that Denim Blue. And I'm just adding a light touch with the Denim Blue. I'm then going to come to back to the dark colour, which is Indigo Blue, and just add a little bit more of that darkness. But you can see I've not gone right to the bottom. I've left sort of that white so it's visible. Then I'm going to come back to the Denim Blue and just add another layer of the Denim Blue. And then I'm going to take my white pencil, just so that I haven't got an edge that's quite so harsh, so that it fades out a little bit. I'm then going to come back again to the Indigo Blue. So coming back to that Indigo Blue and adding another layer of that colour. Let's add a little bit of, and because I've added that white acrylic layer, I can come in with my Posca pen. So I'm then going to go back to the Denim Blue, going into the darker indigo, I love colouring on the top of acrylic. And then I'm going to take the white just to blend those blues out, so you get a little bit like an ombre. Just blending that out, and it means the edge of that colour isn't quite so harsh. It's just softened. Let me just show you. just so you can see that is softened, just beautiful. So let's do our smaller ones. So come in. Again, just leave that white edge. Just so that you've got a little bit of a white trim on there. Then come to that denim. And come in with the denim. So just following the shape of your floral. So we'll then come in with our white. Like so. Just so it blends it out a little bit. Let's put a little bit of that blue just on the stem a little bit. So now I'm going to go back with the indigo. Just make that a little bit darker. But again, remembering to leave a little bit of a white edge. So we'll come then to the denim. So just remember to leave your white edge, because then everything pops. So that white pencil, can you see it picks up the blue and it just drags that out and makes an ombre. There we go. And then they seem to glow on there, don't they? Just beautiful. It seems to glow. So let's take our white Posca, and I'm bound to have picked the wrong one up. So, what did I say? There we go. So then I can just come in with my white Posca, sort of aiming on top of the acrylic paint. And we're aiming on top of the acrylic paint because you don't want the oxide, because the white will pick up the oxide and it will just change colour to a paler blue, because you're picking up the oxide rather than working on the acrylic paint. But it sort of glows then, which works really nicely. So let's add some splatters. So just adding some splatters to the background. And then we'll just give that a dry so that those don't take on too much of that blue colour. You can obviously use your bleed proof as well. Let's turn that over. So you can use your bleed proof as well. There we go. Now let's just have a little bit of a clean up, just so that we don't pick that up. But it really does sort of glow, doesn't it? Oh, I absolutely love that. Absolutely love it. Just wonderful. Just looks so good. Right. Now, in a way, let's have a look. I like them as they are without a word. So let's bring in our Thrinchie book. This is 61 and 62. So let's adhere these. It was actually that one I did first. I do love them when they're in the book, I have to say. Just give it a couple of seconds, because all it does is fight against you, just because it's got a bit of moisture on there. So it's just fighting against you, that's all. So let's just... You can add some more black to the edges if you wanted to, if you're unhappy that it's got a few white touches on there. I'm not. It sort of quite adds to it. So let's... Now, when I come to look at it again, I may decide I want to add a word. I may change my mind, but I just love them as they are. There we go. Clean that end off there, then lose the lid like you normally do. And if we lift this up now, how striking do those look with a bit of colour and a bit of water. I absolutely love them. Can you see that just needs pressing down? There we go. I absolutely love those. So I hope you've enjoyed those, and I hope you'll give them a go. You can also add some shading down here if you want to. But if we use the Inktense pencil, we might take out some of that colour and it'll become like this here. So you can come in with a little bit of your indigo blue, and you can add a little bit of shading just underneath with a little bit of your indigo. So if you want to add a little bit of shading, just so they pop a little bit more, just add a little bit of that indigo. Just so that we don't detract from what we've done. But it just gives it a little bit of shading. Makes it look a little bit more 3D. Just wonderful. I absolutely love that. And I can't wait to see your interpretation. So that was number 61 and 62. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.